For Price Exercise 3 and the tutorial for Chapter 3, you're going to start with an MXD that she's created, and the MXD is in your map documents. So you can see that I am looking at Exercise 3A, so this is bolded, so that's the MXD I'm using. And the data that I'm pulling from, I'm going to scoot this over here, is on my desktop in her folder, and I'm pulling from the USA data. So actually she's done some setups, definition queries, and other things that it will be a little difficult to get back to this place. So you want to make sure that you save this as, make a copy, and maybe don't work in the original. So I would just save as on my desktop. Probably actually wouldn't do this in my desktop. Okay, so I would have a copy of that. Okay. So now if I corrupt this, I can go back to the original. A couple things I want you to see is she has, if I look at the properties for the hazard data frame, I can see that she has done some exclusion of layers based on a clip feature. So in other words, she's not showing all of the rivers in the US, all of the capitals, all of the eruptions. She's using this clip to visually clip the data so that you're not seeing all of the data. So she has it clipped to a specific shape, and she has, I think she has a custom extent, so she has it clipped to that. If you look at the county's properties, you can see that in definition query she has set the file to only show those states, and then the other data is clipped to end at the edges of those states. So this way I don't have to export Oregon and Washington and clip the rivers to that and make a separate file. So I still have my entire data sets. So just a little bit about projections. If I right click the hazards and go into properties, I can look at the coordinate system for each of the layers in the data. And so if I open this, it looks like all of the layers are in the same coordinate system, which is really a great way to work. But let's say I wanted, for some reason, I'm going to change this projection to some horrible projection. So I've changed the projection to this Minnesota projection, which really isn't that bad, but it's not what we want. And let's say I really like this for some reason, so I want to export the data, and instead of using the projection that's in the data set already, I can choose to use the data frame projection. So this is one way to reproject data, and I'm going to go put this inside on my desktop into that Price3 folder. And because I don't have a geodatabase, I have to choose Shapefile. And save that and say OK. And I'm not going to, well, sure, we'll export it. Okay, so now I have a copy of that, but the projection, if I look at this projection, where am I? It tells me that it is the North American equidistance, and if I look at this projection, it tells me that it is the Minnesota Transmercator projection. So that's one way to reproject data. I now have two different projections. Another way, of course, would be to export this into a feature class that has a set projection. I could put this in my Black Hills that has a whole different, oh, those are all shape files. No, it won't. So if I choose, let's do it into Oregon projection, because I think all of Oregon is in the state plane. So I could send it in here, and it would have now whatever the projection is of that feature data set. So that's one way to do that. And if I go back here to my properties for that table of contents, and I look at the layers, I now see I have two projections in this table of contents. One is this Minnesota projection, and it tells me that the counties layer is in that, and then all the other data is in that projection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this, and I'm going to go back and set this to the original projection. And if I forget what that was, which I might have, I can actually import the projection from one of these other layers. So I'm going to import the projection that was originally set for this data, and I think I'm using the USA data, right? And I know it was the projection of the counties. So I'm going to go back and set that. And I hope I did that right. Now let's go back and see. I should just have one projection again set for those. Yes. Good. So my table of contents is in that, and all of these layers are also in that original projection. So it's just a great idea to have a copy of this to be able to look at how she has set up some of those definition queries. I don't think she talks about that in this layer, how she set that up, but it's a really great way to minimize duplication.